improvements and who is not a problem within the school district, went from being a stellar educator and leader who takes her job very serious and loves her students to now possibly being dismissed, again, months before her tenure. If I was sitting on this board, the question I would be asking, where in the world was the district and the school leadership to even allow this type of issue to get to this point? Because as a board, you hire the leaders to lead and grow your educators, who would then in turn lead and teach and grow your students in the school district. Before these last few days, I often wondered why there was such a teacher shortage, given the number of teachers out there looking for work. I now understand why. Thank you for your time.
Next up, we have comments from Thomas Williams.
Gentlemen of the board, my name is Thomas Williams, and I am speaking on behalf of the Galesburg High School student body. Whenever we see an issue come up in our government or in our society, we're always told to speak up if we find an issue, and that's the only way things will get changed and everything. And so in today's society, if we see a bill going through Congress that we're not in favor of, if we get a president or someone, a representative or someone like that we don't like, or they're doing things that we don't like, everybody says, someone's got to do something. Someone's got to do something about that, and no one actually steps up and does anything. And I've decided today to go out of my comfort zone, and I'm not a big public speaker, and I'm exceptionally nervous. And I decided to go in front of all of you about an issue I'm extremely passionate about. Something came to my attention about a week ago, and one of the best teachers that a student could ever hope for, Mr. Gayhart, he's a chemistry teacher, is being let go. And so I decided to do something about it. I decided to speak up. I got into meetings with my fellow peers and talked about what we should do, and I started a petition. And given only 1 week to petition my petition, I was still able to get 228 signatures. And I printed a copy for all of you. And I have the original copy if any of you would like to see that as well. All of these students that you see, all their signatures and their names on the sheet are extremely passionate about the same topic. You can go into GHS and find anyone who's had him as a teacher and ask them, and they will all say the same thing, that he's an amazing teacher, a great guy, and he loves students. He really has connected with all of the students, really, that he's had so far. He's only been teaching for 2 years, and he's still had such an amazing backing, especially as you can see with this petition, of people who are willing to speak up and to do their part in helping stop such a thing. He's become an essential part of the GHS family. And in my time in school, ever since from preschool to now, I've come to learn something. That there's a difference between a good instructor and a good teacher. A good instructor simply feeds the students the information long enough for them to chew it up and spit it back out on the test and the final, without having to remember it at all after the class. Now, a good teacher, on the other hand, as Mr. Gayhart is, a good teacher motivates the students, and a good teacher makes the students want to learn. So that motivation to pass the class or to get that A doesn't come from your parents nagging on you or your own personal self-consciousness about it. It comes from the teacher. And Mr. Gayhart does just that. He motivates their students to actually better themselves. And he's a very good teacher because of that. He is extremely involved in GHS as well. We have this program called Homework Hub, where students who are looking for just a nice place to do their homework, or people who are struggling and want to get help from teachers, go to the library after school every day, and Mr. Gayhart is in there all the time to help the students with their chemistry needs and all. And he's also a coach. He coaches football. And there aren't many teachers who are willing to step up and take that as well. And so he took it upon himself to insert himself into Galesburg High School as big of a figure as he can, changing students for the better, and he's become an essential part of the GHS family. He's also, let me think here, I'm sorry, I'm finding a little lost for words here. But if we don't keep Mr. Gayhart here at GHS, we will not only be losing out the quality of such a fantastic teacher, which I know many teachers who have worked for much longer and aren't even near the same caliber as he is. And we all know that there's a shortage of teachers in the state of Illinois. I don't have any facts and figures with me, but it's a common known fact. We all know that, especially in the Department of Science. And the science wing in Galesburg High School is starting to crumble a little bit, because we saw Doc J, he retired right before Mr. Gayhart, and Mr. Gayhart came in as his replacement. And we're now seeing Mr. Peachy is going to retire. This is his last year at GHS. And Mr. Baxter will probably retire in the next few years. And with all these quality teachers leaving GHS, especially in the science wing, it is of the utmost importance to keep such a quality teacher at GHS. I guarantee you that it is in the student's best interest in this high school for the future if we keep him here at GHS. Thank you.
Next, we have comments from Geo Parker.
I am Geo Parker, if you didn't know, I'm kind of standing here now. Dear members of the board, and generally anyone else that is listening here, there are a lot of people here. And as Tommy said, we are nervous, but we're just here. It might not make sense now, but I'd like to just start by saying that we are all human. I hope it will make sense later. To state my issue or grievance, a chemistry teacher at the high school, Mr. Nathan Gayhart, is being let go. Frankly, I think it's a horrible decision, and whatever can be done about it to reverse this decision should be done. You may be wondering why it's any of my concern, and I can explain that too. Last year, Mr. Gayhart had his first year at GHS, and my college prep chemistry class was one of his very first classes. That creates a sort of bond with the student and the teacher that doesn't ever really go away. As humans, we feel sympathy and compassion for others, so why would it be considered irrational for me to voice my logical and honest opinion when another human being is losing a part of their life, their livelihood? Now, I have not always been interested in sciences. My freshman year, I took biology. I know it doesn't make sense much, but I took biology, and I didn't think it was a cool science. It's a dreadful science. I didn't like it. But I want to be a doctor now. And Mr. Gayhart pushed that interest in sciences for me. I had probably one of the best times I could ever have in a college prep chemistry class. It's harder than normal chemistry, as it says, because it is a college prep class, but Mr. Gayhart was a new teacher, and as a human, we all have experiences with each other, and I had some of the best experiences I could have had in a chemistry class with him. With never a dull moment, Mr. Gayhart in his class became one of my favorite moments in the day, and as all of my peers have noted and agreed with that petition. On that note, my associate and I were on this sort of committee that were formed when we found out about this news, and we really had to do something about it. Everyone that signed that petition form was fully aware of what they were signing. Those are intelligent people that know what they were signing. They're not just people that we walked up to and said, hey, sign this petition, because I'm sure that probably happens a lot. But we made sure that everyone knew. We made sure that everybody knew the facts that we knew, and everybody that signed that is an intelligent person. As I was saying, Mr. Gayhart's unique way of teaching drew me into science as a whole and pushed my interest towards more sciences such as physics and even AP levels of these science classes, such as my interest in AP physics and AP chemistry, which Mr. Gayhart was going to teach next year in the new, course catalog, that's the word. He was overall a great teacher, and the hundreds of people that I've spoken to about him since I took his class have agreed with me. In fact, I really haven't had anyone disagree with me about the fact that he's a great teacher. So if he is such a great teacher and a great person, then why is he being let go? When I first was made aware of the news of his departure, I couldn't really believe it because there was really no way and no proper reason that it would be happening. And we should not live in a world where we allow a young teacher that went to college for the full amount of time and received all of the proper certifications to teach to be just let go without really anything to show for it after just 2 years of teaching at a set location. And from what I understand, his position was not exactly easy to fill because when Doc J, Mr. Johnson, retired, it wasn't exactly easy to fill his position, as his position was, he was looked for several months, and he was one of the only people that applied for the job, from what I know. I'm sorry. With the number of chemistry teachers in Illinois not exactly being very substantial, Mr. Gayhart was the result of months' worth of searching for a teacher to fill that open position. And as Tommy stated, with Mr. Peachy leaving this year, Mr. Baxter probably going to retire soon, our chemistry department and our science department in general desperately needs him. As a human with a solid understanding of basic human emotions, I cannot allow myself to stand by and allow a man that is planning his wedding to be let go from his position as an educator. He did a fine job of educating me and connecting with me as a student, and I am required by correct moral teachings to educate you and anyone else, the board, of this situation. There are so many teachers at the high school that publicly display their teaching methods, to say, and I just don't agree with them. I don't connect with the way that they teach. So why get rid of someone who has just started their career and actually wants to come to work and teach people stuff every day? I cannot allow myself to blend into a society that allows things such as this to happen. No person should be made to live out their last days in their work as a form of a personal hell, not knowing what's going to happen to them. We live in strange times, but this is way too strange for my taste. So I implore you, dear ladies and gentlemen of the board, as humans that have hearts, to please do whatever you can to try and save Mr. Gayhart's job and whoever else's job is on the agenda, because that seems to be a big issue today. After all, we're all human, and no human deserves this. I would like to thank you for granting me this time to speak. I stole your pen, I'm so
Thank you. So I'm going to suspend the rules just to say that I appreciate when students get involved in their civic duty. So thank you for coming up here and speaking. I appreciate that. Next, we move on to agenda item 5, presentations to the board. First up, we have comments from our student council rep.
Hello, my name is Hallie Modich, and I'm a senior at GHS. I'm here to report on behalf of Student Council on what we have done in the past month and our future plans for our school and community. We started off February with our Greek Gala Sweetheart Swirl Assembly, which took place on February 9th in the Field House. Last month, we decided as a council to donate $400 in gift cards, sorry, I lost my spot, to the Talbot kids. During the month, we hosted a canned food drive, and all items will be donated to the Fish Food Pantry. Last Friday, we hosted our second blood drive out of 3 this school year through Red Cross. It was from 1 to 6 p.m. in the library. We had 32 people able to donate, and 27 pints were donated. Red Cross has been willing to give us a $250 scholarship for every 30 pints of blood donated, and we currently have 52 now. This scholarship or scholarships will be randomly given to a senior that either donated blood or helped volunteer at the blood drive. Our next blood drive will be Friday, May 3rd from 1 to 6, so please come donate. Our future plans for Student Council is the Shooting Hoops and Smile and basketball game, which will be held on Thursday, April 4th, which consists of teachers playing against our Special Olympics basketball team to raise money for their trip to state. There will be a chili supper before the game from 5 to 6:30. It only costs $5 for a whole meal. All proceeds will go to the Special Olympics team. And lastly, during April, we will have our Hope Week and Color Run. That will be taking place on Saturday, April 27th, and is open to the community. So please consider signing up, you and your family. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for student council rep? Okay. Moving on to item B, K-12 public speaking rubric. Ms. Springer.
Good evening. I have with me this evening my public speaking committee members. If you'll stand when I say your name. Kelly Sturgis, Katie Davis, Deb McKillop, Allison Vaynerman, Megan Gross, Amy Nielsen, Sarah Rosny, Megan Lee, Angie Noonan, my 712 team, Rebecca Rappanecker, Rachel Swanson, Jared Bruning, Tara Michaels, Brad Benowitz, Lori Ayton, Nick Young, and Jeff Houston. If you'd all stand, be recognized. You may be seated. This group did a fabulous job since last fall. We've been working on the public speaking rubrics, working from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, making sure that what we're expecting students to do is developmentally appropriate, and making sure that we have students that are willing to come out and speak in front of groups of people or even at different events on the specific parameters of each event. Maybe it's a fancy dinner that they need to speak at, or maybe it's a group of people or their peers during a presentation. So without further ado, I will start with our presentation. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. 4 months and 7 weeks ago or so,
we have a dream that one day all students in District 205 will become proficient public speakers and master the skills required in our work world.
We recognize that most people are terrified of getting up and speaking in front of people. But here in District 205, we are committed to helping students understand the importance of being able to conduct themselves professionally in front of any group of people. So first of all, let us assert our firm belief that the only thing they have to fear is fear itself.
This tool has been created to help all teachers in District 205 have a common resource at their disposal as we work with our students beginning in kindergarten all the way through high school to become confident speakers. It may be one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
With this tool, students and teachers alike can follow the continuum of skill development, showing skills ranging from appropriate eye contact, utilizing media to enhance a presentation and demonstrating poise, volume, and so on at different grade levels. We would like our students to model polished behavior in front of their classmates so that they can look like a butterfly, sting like a bee during a speech.
To our respective board officials and members of the public, if you seek success, if you seek prosperity for our students, if you seek enunciation and projection, come here to our buildings. We want you to share your expertise, your advice. We want our students to hear about the skills you're seeking in the workplace. So open your gates, tear down these walls. We want to invite you in.
As our district continues to evolve, we hope to pull people together in their public speaking instruction, and we hope this tool creates a unified method of assessing student public speaking abilities. So let poise ring from elementary schools. Let eye contact shine from every classroom and stage of the middle schools. Let media presentations electrify audiences at GHS. Tell them to go out there with all they got and win just one for the Gipper. District 205 students.
Today, March 11, 2019, a date which will live in infamy. Give them a round of applause for their presentation. You have in front of you 2 of the rubric grid sheets. Kindergarten through 6th grade will look like this. We will have visuals within the classrooms. As you can see, it scaffolds, it builds on top of the next grade level. So you're going to start out with minimal skills at kindergarten, and we're going to build on those so that students are able to work through the process. On the second sheet, you have the 7th through 12th grade public speaking rubric. I did include 5th and 6th grade because the idea is that it's inclusive of students who need those extra supports that may not be, they may be a 7th grader, but they're not yet ready for 7th grade skills. So we need to be able to support them and show them where they are on that continuum of learning. So this is extremely developmental, and we are hoping to have students maybe that are 3rd graders that are really rocking those skills, that we can push them into a 4th grade rubric or a 5th grade rubric, depending on where their needs are demonstrated. Are there any, and I also want to mention these actually align to the K-5 report card. So these skills will be an easy and efficient way for teachers to grade and then reflect those marks in the standards-based report card.
Board members, any questions?
Impressive.
I have been very impressed by the work ethic of this group. They have come in and really taken charge and have made it their own. We will have some graphic organizers that will carry over from the writing rubric process, so students are familiar with those at the grade levels that they can utilize to help build these presentations depending on what they are delivering for.
Remember, the good isn't dear to their bones, so thank you anyway, but it's not. Forget
Thank you to the committee for all their work. I look forward to looking over this and seeing. I like the fact that we're going to align it to the report cards. I'm sure that makes that development pretty
Makes it very
easy.
user-friendly, yes.
Okay, next we have presentation about the K through 6 writing rubric. Ms. Springer.
All right, I'm going to ask my writing rubric team to come up. Miss Allison Clark will introduce the members of our committee, followed by Mr. Sanner, and then we have a presentation. You do have the rubrics in front of you that I've printed.
pictures.
Our writing curriculum committee consists of K through 6 teachers and 3 administrators from our district. We started this in the fall. They are Allison Clark, Ken Sanner, Jennifer Jennings, Angie Sallows, Krista Gress, Jonathan Bradburn, Mindy Matthews, Valerie Hawkins, Katie Jennings, and Tiffany Springer.
So we got together and we decided as a district what we thought was important. We teach about the writing process to our kids, so it was important for us to come together and create a process of how we are going to go about coming up with the things that we think are important for our students to learn. It was really nice because we were able to go across buildings and grade levels and work with people that we've never worked with before. And so it was really nice to be able to meet. We started this fall and we started kind of looking for commonalities between things that we already do and things that we can do to help students get more of an equal playing field. So it was really nice to be able to work with our other educators and be able to, the biggest thing I think is be able to kind of make a bridge from grade level to grade level and help students do their best through writing.
Okay, so we did the 3 different types of writing that are across all levels. We have the narrative, the story writing, and they're all on like the one sheet. They have the student checklist and then the teacher, so you can kind of look at them all side by side. We also have the opinion, which is argumentative at the middle grades. So the younger grades call it opinion, and then when we get to 6th grade, the Common Core Standards changes it to argumentative. And then we have the informative and expository, same story. Younger grades kind of call it the informative. When we get into the middle grades, we call it expository. And then, so the teacher rubric has the 4, 3, 2, 1. They also have the, at the very top is the reading response component. And I think somebody else is going to talk about that more, so I don't want to step on any toes. And then on the left, they have it broken down with the criteria, which is the ideas, organization, word choice, and conventions. And then the teacher rubric is very user-friendly, so we can give it to new teachers that are coming in, and we can use it across. And it kind of, they all kind of look the same, so even if you're in one grade level and you move up, you're still going to have that familiarity. I don't know what to say.
All right, so I'm going to talk about the student checklist that you have in front of you. So there's student checklists that go along with each of the teacher rubrics at each grade level. The great thing about these is that they do build grade level to grade level, so as students progress, they will use these checklists throughout their schooling. The 3 types of writing are also included on the student checklist, just like the teacher rubric. So as she mentioned, you can use those side by side. The main part that we created this was so that students would have a checklist that they can use as they're writing with student-friendly language that will help them assess their writing as they continue that writing process. For the K1 group, you'll notice on the student checklist that there are little pictures or icons. So as they're building their reading and their writing, they can just circle those icons or circle those little pictures to still assess themselves on that little checklist. We thought we could see this being used many different ways. So as I mentioned, students can use these when they begin their writing, That way they know what to include in their writing because the checklist is right there. They could also use that rubric or that checklist when they're conferencing with the teacher, when they're conferencing with their peers. So they have that to refer to, and it's just a nice little way for them to check in with the teacher or check in with their peers. We also thought that it can be used for after finishing a piece, they can then again reflect how they've done, checking that they've included everything that they need to include in that specific type of piece. So if it's an informative piece, they know what pieces to include based on that checklist. And then the final part of this is that it can also be used, obviously, to communicate with parents. So teachers can pull these out during parent-teacher conferences and pull both of these side by side and go back and forth between the two. And they can kind of show, here's what your student thought, here's where they assess themselves. Also included on the student checklist on the back at the very, very bottom is the self-reflection piece, which is also a very, very important piece. For K2, the students will identify their glows and their grows. So a glow is an area of their writing in which they kind of shined, something that they were really proud of and they thought they did well. And then the grows are the areas where they feel they can do better or develop and grow next time. For 3 through 5, the glows and grows are just worded a little bit differently as they progress, obviously, to the upper levels. And then overall, we thought the student checklist would really give students a wonderful way to assess themselves through their writing and to just grow from grade to grade as they continue to use these. I'd like to share with you the premise behind where the writing rubrics and the checklists are coming from. As many of you on the board know, we've been working on some curriculum initiatives at the elementary level for quite some time. We started with the standards-based report card, we moved into those quarterly plans, and then last year we kind of finished up with that common vocabulary adoption. And so with these writing rubrics and checklists that you see in front of you, I kind of call it a scoring rubric because we're wanting the students to use it for their scoring as well. That's kind of the foundational pieces that brought us to this point. You know, one of the goals we had on those committees was to eventually get to some common assessments, which is that next piece we're hoping to get to at the elementary level, and then leading into our 6th grade, our middle school, to kind of bridge the gap between what we're doing at the elementary level and getting into 6th grade. We also want to make sure that we're doing some common things across all of our buildings so that we don't see each other all the time. We want to make sure that what we're teaching 1st grade writing at King, they're able to use those rubrics in a common way. The alignment of the scoring rubric to the report card was really important to the committee. So you're going to notice that the indicators that you see down the left-hand side directly match the same terminology that you're going to see on the report card. You also are going to see a correlation that's important for students and parents to see, so that we are pairing how the individual writing pieces are scored with what they're going to see on the report card. So we're still using that 4 through 1 scoring rubric that we use on the report card. So 4 is exceeding district and state standards, 3 is meeting, 2 is approaching, and 1 is not meeting. By design, the scoring rubric has clearly defined sections to isolate those specific areas that we talked about earlier: ideas, organization, word choice. And there's also a space underneath so that teachers can kind of anecdotally respond to students, how they're doing. So it's not just the score, there's a space there where I can comment, I can use during conversations that I'm having with each student. So in essence, the students will be able to gain feedback on their submitted writing pieces in each of those areas. Students and parents will be able to see areas of strength indicated by 4s, and some of those areas where they may need to be working on 2s and 1s. Additionally, teachers can use the rubrics to drive their instruction. So what are we seeing that they're doing well? Where are we needing to kind of step in for remediation? So you're kind of are able to do both extension and remediation within the classroom. An example of this would be a student who scored 4 or exceeding in the ideas. They've got great ideas in their writing, but maybe they only got a 2 when it comes to that organization. So we need to try and figure out how we're going to bring their ideas, which are fantastic above where they're working at grade level, and how do we kind of work in to make sure that they're able to organize those ideas in a cohesive writing piece. The teacher and the students would be able to set their goal to increase the students' organization of thoughts and ideas. And then through the course of using the rubric throughout the quarter, we're able to look and see where are they growing? Are they making those gains that we're wanting them to in the quarter, and then throughout the school year? In the same fashion, the checklists are in the student-friendly language. The scoring rubric, correlates with our Common Core standards with those 3 key types of writing. Once each grade level's writing rubric was aligned within, I did first grade, we then sat down as a committee and started at the K level, and we checked that vocabulary to make sure that words that I was using on the kindergarten rubric and checklist were translating over to first grade. And we made those modifications as we went along. But in essence, the students should be able to see these rubrics and the checklists become a customary and familiar element to their writing. So what they saw in first grade, that organization, when it comes out in second grade, it shouldn't look that different to them. And the same thing as they progress on throughout the grade levels.
I'm just going to touch on the teacher rubric just a little bit. My part's kind of short. The teacher rubric is effective for each individual child because, like, say, okay, I teach second grade. Well, I have some writers that are really ready for third grade and fourth grade. Well, why hold them back? Because our goal is to keep them moving. And then there's some students that, writing, it's like, that is just taunting. It's like, oh, writing, and so maybe they're not quite ready. Maybe they're really good with ideas, but they're not able to get them in order or whatnot. And so you can use a rubric from a different grade level to kind of help you along the journey. And this is something that all of us teachers kind of wanted, is this direction, to have a rubric. Anyway, what I was going to say is the teacher rubric can be your communication piece for the teacher, for the student, for the parents. And since it's common language, I could talk with my friends, my other coworkers, and say, hey, this is where my student's struggling at writing. Do you have any helpful information? And we can kind of meet together to discuss where are we going, what ideas can we bring. So mine was just on the teacher rubric and the language kind of matching up to the student friendly.
In creating our writing rubrics, we wanted to really make a very efficient rubric to go across the district, and one that was very effective and easy to use. And this rubric isn't just for writing alone. I teach fourth grade, so we're getting into 5-paragraph essay types of writing. But I also have my students that might read an informative piece of text, and then they might have a writing prompt that goes with it. And so that reading response part at the top, I can use that for. Also, my students are doing constructed responses in their math things, which is part of our report card. And also expected on the state testing that they explain how they solve their math problem. So first I did this, next I did this, last I did this. So the writing rubric can not only be used, just in a writing fashion, but you can use it within science, math, social studies, all the areas. As we are developing this, we're going to, our next step is developing some common graphic organizers that we can use for each grade level. And so hopefully, as we, kindergarten one would be very basic. As we move to second grade and the fourth grade, each step of the graphic organizer will build based on our level, whereas, second grade, they might be focusing on just a good 5-sentence paragraph, whereas we get to fourth and fifth grade, we're moving on to 5-paragraph essays. And then we're going to also, we'll have these posters, large posters available that can be placed in the classrooms so students can refer back to some of those graphic organizers that they have or the checklists available to them. And we would additionally like to have across the district one quarterly writing prompt that everyone in each grade level responds to. That way we can really assess and see how our students district-wide throughout all schools are doing. And that'll help to kind of create a more cohesive process for the district. I could sit down with teachers from Steele. We could, pull our papers, have students' names hidden, and use the same rubric to assess that and see how close we are in grading our writings. And so we could work on, having an inter-rater reliability on that portion. And we also talked about, as a new teacher coming in, it'd be really nice to have this specific rubric available that you know what you're going to assess, how you're going to assess it, and that it's, and we also have several students who move within the district. They're going from Silas to Steele or wherever, so they know, I've already seen this at this school, I'm going to get the same look at the school, so it's not going to be unfamiliar or different to them.
Very nicely done. Very nicely done. Any questions?
As a former writing teacher, I'm thrilled that this is getting done. I just have one really quick question, and I don't know if it's been worked out yet, but I think the idea of the monthly prompt is a wonderful thing. But have we begun to look at what we're going to take out? Because I know we're really good in education of going, yeah, let's add that in, let's add that in, let's add that in, and we never take anything away. And then poor teachers are left doing a million things. So have we even begun the discussion of this is going to replace, this is going to augment? And if not, all I'm saying is I would expect that. So let's make sure that we have some time to make sure that we're doing that as well.
So we wanted to do a quarterly or even just one of each piece of writing, so one of each of the types. We don't want to do it monthly. But the piece that we talked about was weaving into something we're already doing. For example, Jennifer Jennings is doing the 5 senses in science. That could be something that she utilizes there.
And within the report card, we're kind of expecting at least 3 data points for each of our
large
areas. So, one of those writing prompts would be something that we would use.
And that's fantastic. I just want to make sure that we're always talking about some sort of replacement, augmentation, not just one more thing, because eventually we don't have enough time to teach anything very well. So we want to make sure we're mindful of that.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much. Nicely done. Thank you.
Teacher can say their name so you can start to learn who some of the people are. Because I was able to identify 3 of them, but 3 of them I had no idea.
That would be a good idea.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have a presentation on summer school. Mrs. Springer.
Mr. Bradburn, you can come up.
Good evening. I'm really excited to be able to talk to you about an opportunity for our kids over the summer. We would like to do a program for summer school for grades K through 12. So I'm going to go over a brief overview of the program and some of the activities and some of the courses that the students will be taking. I'm going to load myself here. Okay, so the morning schedule I want to talk about for the kindergarten through 8th grade summer program. Okay. We'd like to do 9 to noon Monday through Thursday for our students. This is going to offer us to have 2 separate 85-minute blocks. So students will come in and have an 85-minute block for reading and an 85-minute block for math. We're going to hire 2 teachers per grade level. Each teacher will kind of specialize. So if Mrs. Springer and I were teaching, then I would do math, she would do reading, she would get to focus on reading, I would get to focus on math. And so we're having the teachers that are working over the summer program are only having to prep and specialize on one content area. The afternoon program is something that's really exciting. We wanted to offer some exploration in science, technology, engineering, and math. And so we have devised an afternoon program that starts at 1 o'clock and goes till 4. It's a good 3-hour block to allow problem-based learning, some real-world solutions, and allow for some questions to be devised by the students and allow them to investigate. You can see the different units we have up there. I was really having a good time of thinking about some of the activities that we could do with all of these. So we're going to do some flying. We'll make some big tetrahedral kites. We're going to do fingerprinting. We're going to do some chemical reactions. We're going to build some catapults, hopefully. We're going to do rocketry and, of course, robotics, because I love that. So we're going to be able to do that through the students will then rotate each week through one of those units. So for the 6-week program, they'll run through those units.
Excuse me, John, are the same students participating both in morning and afternoon?
Any student that participates, thank you for the question, any student that participates in the morning would have right to go into the afternoon program. If they do, they've got a spot there. We anticipate that maybe not everybody will want to go into the afternoon program, so we'll have spots that we'll then be able to save for other parents who want to have students partake in that afternoon program, so we can fill the program. We'd like to have a full program. So we're looking at, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, but we're looking at 15 students per class, 2 classes for each grade level. So 30 students per each grade level, K through 8.
And how are the students chosen then?
We sent out a form to the teachers to allow them to nominate students they think would benefit from the summer program. The form is going to allow them to enter data, progress data. When all the data is collected, the administrative team is going to sit down and go through and look at selection so that we meet we fill our program. Okay? Looking at the curriculum, we're really excited about this. We're going with the American Reading Company for the reading program, kindergarten through 8. This is a program that has a lot of units that are tied to specific content areas. We're going to look at the lessons include book. When we looked at the website, Mrs. Springer and I looked at the website, we've got books, lots of materials coming for the teachers to be able to use with the students, lessons and assessments. So we're on standard. It is through Ed Reports, one of the curriculum, quality core curriculum. So we're very excited about bringing that.
Would you add a couple of the topics that they're going to cover?
I will do that. So we were looking at some themes for each grade level. Looks like kindergarten will do animal habitats, life cycle. We're going to do first grade endangered animals. Second grade is marine life. Third grade is sports and society. Fourth grade, animal adaptations. Fifth grade is space rising. Sixth grade is ancient civilizations. Seventh grade is human body. And eighth grade is environmental studies. So all the materials are focused on that theme with books to support it. Pretty exciting. So, okay. Let's go to the next slide. Math curriculum, we want also to be able to, the teachers to work on working with the students. Wanted to make sure that we had a lot of materials. We're going with the live binders from the Illinois State Board of Education. These provide on-standard lessons, activities, and assessments so that the students can get a real good session. Summer session is 6 weeks. We're going to go Monday through Thursday, so it's only 24 sessions. We really want to be able to really be intensive and purposeful in the instruction. And on standard. So that's why we're going with live binders, because we know that they are tied to the Illinois Learning Standards. Very important part of this process is to find out if we are we helping, if it's working. We're going to do this expense and this work. We want to make sure that we are getting return on the investment with our students. So we've got a free pilot on Ames Web Plus that we're going to use over the summer session for progress monitoring to get data on how our students are doing on specific skills and standards. So we get some information. We're also going to do something in conjunction with our Scantron performance series, which we already do during the school year. We do three benchmarks during the school year. We're going to take and do a summer administration of Scantron. So we'll have the spring administration data and their scale scores for the students that are in summer school. And then at the end of the summer school session, we're going to do a summer administration of performance series. We'd like to see a real impact on the scale score. So we can pick that data, and also that information can be used for the next grade level for teachers. So moving out of the K-8 program, we're looking at the 9-12 program. This is something that also we're very excited about. We're going to offer a morning and an afternoon program, just like the K-8 program, but this is going to be custom, kind of tailored for students who need to do credit recovery. So we're going to allow that in the morning and the afternoon through Edgenuity. But what we're also going to do is we're going to give them specific training on some executive skills, using the calendar, task lists, planning, and some of the things that help people be successful. We're going to bring in outside speakers, professionals from the community, to speak to our kids during this session to kind of tell them, look, these are the skills I use, this is how I use them, this is how this helps me be successful. And then something that we've added is not just to give them an instruction, but to continue support throughout the school year. So we'd like to have the counselors from the high school meet with these kids one of the last sessions of the program, and then follow up with them during the school year, so that we can say, how are you doing? You've learned these skills. Are you using them? Do you need some help? So that we continue to give them skills and then support them throughout the rest of the school year. I'm really excited about that. So,
once again, the numbers for the 9-12 are also 15 to grade level then? You don't
No.
have information here.
We're looking at 25 for each section.
Yeah, that's
And so student there would be morning or afternoon?
correct.
Okay.
Correct. We need
How
two
are they
teachers.
chosen then?
I'm sorry?
How will they be chosen then?
Same process.
Priority will be given to students who need credit recovery. I mean, that's the primary directive, but then if there's space available for exploration, then they would have that as well.
Yeah, we would look through the numbers as we were looking at how
Absolutely,
many.
the counselors will be going through that
Right.
data.
Thank you. Okay. And currently, current reality is though that we are still have a number of openings. It's not quite as bleak as what looks up there. We've actually, for kindergarten, we have the afternoon staffed. For third grade, we have the afternoon staffed. We have one person, I believe, for fifth grade and one person for sixth grade. And we're able to do a high school program. We have two people for the morning, and I think one person for the afternoon. I might have that backwards, but I think well, yeah, one in the morning and then two in the afternoon. We just updated the table. I didn't have time to put it into the presentation, but we have the elementary. Again, I still have one opening for first grade reading, and then the middle school we still have quite a few openings. We're very confident that we're at least going to be able to run the elementary program, and we're going to be able to run the high school program. At one point, we were worried about that. So we set March 15th as a date. We want to give our district teachers opportunity to get into this program and do this first, so they can be part of this before we have to go out and try to expand our area and look for summer school teachers. But we want our people first, if we can. And with that, I believe, take any questions you have.
Are you doing summer feeding as part of this?
There will be lunch,
How does
yes.
that work for students who aren't participating? Can other children come in to participate in
Yes,
lunch?
we factored that in, and we talked with food service are able to handle that. I think they're going to be a different time for the community lunch program. Our kids are scheduled to have lunch. For those that are staying from the morning through going into the afternoon, we're going to serve lunch, and then there'll be another serving time for community people partaking in that lunch program.
And how will that be publicized so students can avail themselves of it?
Ms. Weber is working on that. She's already been part of their discussions with us as far as selecting the time frames for the lunches, and so she's going to do her communication as she does each year.
Thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
You get the teachers.
Okay, up next, we have a discussion regarding the Lombard Middle School's building design. Dr. Asman.
Thank you. So we have,
Oh,
Jeff.
hold on, before we start, because we had a number of presentations tonight, so Hallie, as student council rep, you don't actually have to stay. You need to go. Okay.
But you can.
I told her.
Okay. It isn't. She's interested.
You may.
We have many members of the Lombard committee here tonight, and I'll let them introduce themselves. At this time, the chair of that committee is Mr. Nick Young, so I will turn it over to him, and Nick, you can take it away.
Thanks. As Dr. Asplund mentioned, my name's Nick Young. I'm the principal at Lombard. I'm very passionate and lucky to be on this committee. I was asked to be the chairperson for it, so I'm honored to do that. As a former student of Lombard, it's near and dear to my heart. I'll kind of announce the committee for you, and if you're here, please feel free to recognize and stand up. You put a lot of hard work. Paulette Earp from Transportation, Pam Weber from Food Service, Mark Reed from our custodial maintenance crew, Rick Lachey from Technology, Kyle Grady, 5th grade PE, Russ Robb, our music and fine arts coordinator, Heather Halinga, who's also served as our minutes manager and took great notes for us, so I thank her, 5th grade from Steele, Kristen O'Kane, 6th grade from math, Katie Davis, 6th grade from ELA, Michelle Nelson, 6th grade from Churchill, social studies, Jennifer Miller, junior high art at both middle and Churchill and Lombard, Leanne Cloud, who's our district librarian, Ms. Jen Ham, who is our central office representative, Mr. Michaels, who serves as our assistant principal at Lombard, he's here, Ms. Banks sat in on the committee, Mr. Dwight White, community member, gave up his time, thank you to him, Sandra Taylor from Food Service, Heather Galbraith, 6th Science, Leggett representatives, and then also Pastor Ethan Vajajan, who was also a community member who served on it. So I just thank them for their work and diligence and input. What we did was we had the process. We had some driving questions that we looked at. For example, what a current space in the building can be used? What space do we need to manipulate? Are there things that we need to change or translate to make it into a 5-6 grade center? So, for example, lockers, storage, and space in the middle school. So a whole gamut of things, and I'll kind of highlight some of the areas, the main themes that came out of our several meetings. And what we would do is typically we would have a brainstorming session. We looked at the original renderings, we give information to the architects, the engineers, they bring back our information in another rendering. We keep doing that back and forth with input from everybody. Some of the main points that came out of this certainly were an increase in our cafeteria and kitchen space, and I'm sure you'll see that in a minute with our commons area. Our cafeteria increased pretty much threefold, so it's a giant room. Moving our life skills classrooms to the first floor. We currently have wheelchair bound and students that have mobility issues on our second floor. That's not a good practice for us to have. We need to make it easier on them, so that was a priority for us. Grouping and structuring our rooms by grade level and/or by grade level teams if possible. So that kind of looks at that curriculum piece as well, and we'll be coming up with that committee later in the year. Exploring an increase in our classroom space and storage. If you've ever been in Lombard, the original shell of the building was built in 1939. It was added onto in 1955, and then again in 2000, and then renovated in 2012. So you have some tight, kind of quirky areas to deal with, but we make it work currently, and we kind of did some things where we think we can make it work with a 5-6 building. We know we can make it work with a 5-6 building. Some issues that we looked at was traffic flow. Dwight brought up a great point as a parent. Currently sits at Churchill Junior High. And even though we have that through road there, there's still some issues with picking up, so that's something we need to explore further. We're lucky at Lombard because we have a building that sits on a block, a standalone block, and we have 4 ways and access to it. So it's currently not a huge issue for us, but certainly something we talked about with the pickup and drop off. Dedicated science and STEM classrooms came in as a big point. We certainly want kids up moving, hands-on, being able to collaborate. So I think you'll see some of those in the renderings. Also, we wanted to increase our stage size to accommodate larger band and choir. Certainly if you're putting every 5th and 6th grader into one building, you're going to have a nice sized band and choir. So you'll see a room expansion for the band and choir, a stage expansion for that as well. We have one of the best music halls in town. We want to continue to do that and promote our kids in that area. We looked at repurposing some of our locker rooms. We know that we may still have a competition gym that may still be used for 7th and 8th grade. If you've ever been in Lombard, there's also a smaller gym. So it has locker rooms attached to it. We don't really use those locker rooms throughout the year. It's kind of dead space for us. So we looked at repurposing that into a fitness center for our kids that can do yoga, and we can incorporate movement there. So thanks to our PE staff for their input on that. Like I said, increased the band room. The library is increasing. The commons area, one of the input was having some tall natural lighting windows, but that were also safe. Keeping our existing exterior restrooms. It may sound silly, but you're going to have a playground aspect in Lombard now with a 5th, 6th building more than likely. So there's some exterior bathrooms that we keep open for PE and for athletic events that happen there. One of the renderings said it was like looking at changing those into offices. We were kind of against that. We wanted those outdoor restrooms to kind of help with our PE and playground. Certainly still some concerns and things. I think the overall concern throughout the whole committee was, and one thing we had to keep coming back to was, we were in charge of developing the spaces. Not necessarily a curriculum that's going to go in those spaces, that's something that will come later, but it's something we had to keep in mind as we develop these spaces. So for example, we know we want band and choir, so there's spaces that are dedicated to them. You'll see in the drawings there's also spaces for electives. We just haven't identified what necessarily those electives will be yet, and nothing's necessarily on or off the table at this point, but certainly wanted to have those spaces for those. Another point, if you've ever been in Lombard, we have that old band room upstairs. You know, it's kind of like nice on one hand, terrible on the other. We don't have a lot of storage there, but we use that room for a lot of storage, but it'd be really nice. We looked at connecting that to the upstairs room, and we just don't know if that's necessarily going to be feasible or safe, or if we'd have to tear down the whole portion of the building or cost effective to do that. So at this point, I don't think that's in the plans, but certainly a challenge for us. You'll see in a minute the noise from the commons area. There's a library there, band room, so it's just going to be a big area. So we're just trying to spread kids out and doing things adequately. That was a concern of ours. We think we moved things where we can certainly do that. Traffic flow, you're going to be increasing the enrollment by maybe 150 kids. So how do we do that? Now traffic flow not only outside the building, but inside the building as well. That would be something we would recommend the curriculum committee to look at as well. Playground and hard surfaces. Certainly an important thing to look at. And then one thing that came up at the committee was with the location of our PE. We have a block that's south of campus. Our kids have to cross a city street every time to get to that block. So I don't know if there's something we could do to petition the city to look at maybe closing a portion of that seat for the safety of our children. Certainly something we can look at down the road. So if you got renderings and pictures, I'll stop blabbing and we can look at it.
You did an awesome job.
Thanks.
I'm just saying. So I'm going to briefly run through the graphic version of what Mr. Young presented. So this is the existing floor plan currently as it is, right here. And the next one shows you what the existing to new. So the blue represents remodeled area within the existing building, and the green represents additions and renovations. Mostly additions, but when you tie into a building, you gotta renovate. I'm gonna zoom in because nobody can see these tiny little tags, but the area of renovation is approximately 23,000 square feet, and the new addition is about 14,800. Again, it was a very collaborative process with Russell Leggett, all the stakeholders tossing back and forth ideas. It was a very collaborative process. So this is enlarged on the far left end. You can start to see the core, these are core classrooms here. We're renovating these spaces. More core classrooms right here. We're renovating the existing cafeteria into core classrooms. We're changing these to specials. And then this is the area Mr. Young was talking about, whereas the locker room, we're making this into a fitness, climbing wall, a yoga, just basically an auxiliary space to the gym. We're keeping these exterior toilet rooms here, and we're keeping the storage on the side.
Jeff, can you talk about these classrooms and why they're larger and why they needed renovated? Those are the science classrooms, or space that's dedicated with water and
Right.
portable demonstration tables?
Yeah, so those are the demonstration tables, so they have to be renovated to be larger to have the capacity for those potential future core classroom ideas.
Right.
But there is one core classroom without exterior lights. Are we doing anything to get light into that classroom, like off the walls or something?
We could investigate some options. This is, right now, we call this a program and schematic design phase. We're looking sort of in 2 dimensions, pretty flat, and then at the end, I'll show you a couple renderings where we sort of pull it up a little bit and show you some 3D massing. So yes, Maury, there is definitely, that's a concern. Did I miss anything, Mr. Young?
So far, so good.
Okay. So this is the north half. You can start to see where we're renovating again. We have an in-school suspension up here and a conference room. We have 2 core classrooms and a social worker down here. We have an ED space with a couple rooms, core classrooms and speech here, and then this is that life skills suite where we have a larger toilet room and a potential changing facility, kitchenette, thank you. And the nice part about this, it's on the first floor. There's going to be access from the south right off that main, so it would facilitate better accessibility. You can see the stage extension here, trying to gain more room for the choir on the stage, so we're anticipating that. And then this is the southeast corner, and you can start to see this is the large commons. It's about 4,000 square feet. The kitchen's a little larger. There's a servery here, and then there's toilet rooms and custodial service spaces off the commons. This is the media center, so this is going to be the 21st century hub. Lots of exciting ideas, little collaborative spaces, very exciting. You know, we've got to work through the sound issues, but our idea is that we hope to keep this open, energetic, really collaborative open space.
We'd love kids to come in there during lunchtime. We don't want it just to close it off just to library time. We want to open this up and utilize it throughout the day. It's there, we should use it.
So we have the band room down here, and then a teacher's lounge, and then you can start to see the proximity for the life skills rooms right off this proposed south entrance. And then just conceptually, just very rough sketches right now, what the addition would look like. We're really trying to be contextual. What that means is we try to make the building blend as much as we can with the existing. You've got a great looking building. We're going to try to emulate it as much as we can. We don't want to do a Soldier Field where we land a spaceship on top of anything. So we want to be very contextual. And then this is a ground view from the south side, just to give a general perspective. These will get cleaned up as we go. We'll start to work through curriculum. We'll start to work out casework and details as we continue through the design process. So with that, any questions?
Nick, do you want to talk about the courtyard and potential plans for that as well?
Sure, we talked about the courtyard, and we certainly want to make this a usable, accessible space too. It's nice that it's enclosed, so it's a safety factor as well. We keep our students safe in there. We started talking briefly, not a lot, about greenery options, you know, maybe flooring or grounding. That's maybe not maintenance free potentially, so if anybody has ideas about that outside of AstroTurf, we'll certainly want to look at that, but it's just an exciting potential to have out there. Classrooms can go out there and utilize that space as well, so certainly a valuable piece to this model as well.
Any questions from board members? or comments. It doesn't have to be questions.
Well, I sat on 2 of the sessions. I was very happy with the input that you got and the ability to respond to the input that people gave to you.
Thank you.
I want to go to Lombard.
Too old.
Looks amazing.
And it does.
Great job.
It looks,
Really looks
it
amazing.
looks, it looks wonderful.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Do you feel from your position that you were able to address most, if not all, concerns that have been talked about, except for, I'm assuming, traffic flow, because that's probably...
Define address, make people happy, or?
Oh, no, not make people happy.
There's certainly some give and take.
Because with this many people involved, not everybody's going to be happy, but we feel like we got to a space where people felt like, I've been heard, that's not perfect for me, but I'm going to be able to live with that.
Everybody had a voice,
Okay.
for certain. I mean, and like I said, it wasn't, we tried to make everybody happy, but that's a tough task.
Oh, yeah.
But we had to look student first. That's the most important thing. So as we looked student first, we felt this was the best model for our 5th and 6th grade girls.
It looks great.
And several people did comment that, well, I really wanted this, but since I've got this, I can handle this if I can get this. So I think we did do that in a lot of cases.
So Jeff or Brett, who's here from Russell Construction, raise your hand, Brett, so Brett, okay. Yes, Brett from Russell Construction. In your professional opinion, what is the next thing we need to do?
We need to get this conceptual floor plan approved, then we need to start having meetings with curriculum, sort of talk about what the nuts and bolts in each one. We need to make sure we're aligned on the budget, which I think we're tracking well right now. And then our next step is we're going to try to go out to bid in June 2019. We'll issue these for bidding if everything goes according to plan.
Okay, so, the next step I heard then is you want the board to approve the floor plan?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we can have that up for next month for the board to approve? Yes? I mean, we can keep going forward from there. We haven't heard any major concerns, so, I mean, we're not stopping work. I mean, that's really my important part here, is we have to keep the timeline moving. So.
Yep, we'll keep going. We'll keep pushing you on deadlines and curriculum and meetings with certain, so we'll keep pushing.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, we have a discussion about building closures. Dr. Astley.
Thank you. So last month, we were tasked with determining whether or not we could close Gale at the end of this year. And so we set about trying to do that work, and I am going to ask Mrs. Ham to present that information and our ultimate recommendation and our rationale for what that recommendation is.
Elson, can you pull up this document? Oh, yeah, very good. All right, you're quicker than I was.
Can you make it larger?
Okay, so there was a variety of different factors that I looked at along with the assistance of Mrs. Springer. We needed to look at this from a financial perspective as well as a curriculum perspective, moving students, and what we feel would be the best recommendation moving forward. So just looking at the pure numbers and looking at them very conservatively, we believe that if we were to close Gale at the end of the 18-19 school year, that we would have an annual savings each year of about $389,000. So by closing it 2 years early, we would be saving a minimum of $778,000, which is pretty substantial. Ms. Springer and I took a look to see and worked with some of the building principals to see if we were to take those sections of Gale, could they fit in the existing buildings that we had, which would be Steele, Nielsen, King, and Silas. The concern that we had, and they all fit, we were able to do that. We were to fit all the sections of Gale into those 4 remaining buildings without any of the additions being built. But our concern was we could not guarantee that if we moved the students for next year and for the 2020-21 school year, that they wouldn't be moving again when we ultimately kind of put everyone in their new homes at the beginning of the 2021 school year. When we start to talk about the 20s, it gets very confusing because you don't know what you're talking about, so I apologize. So as we're working through this process with Leggett, we actually had the opportunity to tour Sandburg Mall because we have a very big puzzle to put together. So it's not just renovations at Steele, it's not just renovations at Lombard and King, but it's also renovations of GHS. And how we're going to do this and how we're going to make the space available to literally tear out every interior wall of the high school, replace every pipe, replace all the HVAC systems. It's a huge undertaking. So the best case scenario was that we could find a facility off-site, give Russell Construction the high school for a year, and basically reconstruct the high school. Dr. Asplund met with a couple different individuals at Sandburg. That there was enough space there, so we started to think outside the box and realized we have a very large mall that is empty, and would it be a possibility, could we go to Sandburg Mall or a portion of Sandburg Mall for a year? So we took a tour last Tuesday, and it was extremely interesting. Extremely interesting. It was a very cold day on Tuesday, and when we walked in, it was probably 15 degrees colder inside the mall than it was outside. So that was the first thing that we noticed. We went in the old Kmart entrance, and those of you who, can, in your mind, walk through that mall as I can, from childhood. So we went in the Kmart entrance. There had been significant water damage. There's been no heat, no electricity, and some of the water pipes had burst with the cold weather. So there was standing water in the Kmart end. So we wound our way around down to the old Sears area. That looked very promising. We thought there would be areas for our GAVC until the young man who was the representative for the owner said that that was probably the worst wing in the building. And so that immediately was taken off the table, and so we headed down to Bergner's. And Bergner's looked pretty good. We were pretty excited until we found that there were only 3 bathrooms, and I mean 3 stalls in the entire Bergner's store. So to relocate 1,100 students plus faculty with 11 bathrooms, probably going to be a bit of an issue. And then we started kind of talking about what type of commitment we would need to make, and we were looking at having to lease the space for 4 to 5 years, potentially $2 to $3 million, and work to get that space up and going, and that's kind of where the conversation ended. So although it was very interesting, and yeah, Leggett and Russell came with us, and a little spooky in spots. I have to say, when we found the Christmas closet and the talking Christmas tree was still in there, and if any of you remember the talking Christmas tree, and you walk into a big closet, and I bet you could get it at a pretty cheap price right now.
I want it.
So it was, it was a creative idea, but it became not feasible. So we came back to the district office and sat down with Russell Construction and Leggett and said, what are our other options? And we came up with, it's an aggressive timeline, but we feel is the best recommendation to move forward. Allison, can you pull up this document? Okay, so in essence, what we're recommending is, and this is an aggressive time schedule, but what we're recommending is that we complete the additions at King, the additions and renovations at Steele, and the addition and renovations at Lombard during the 2019-2020 school year. This is really aggressive. There will be 3 different construction sites that are going on, in addition to preparations for the GHS kitchen remodel, and I'll talk about why that is so important and why we have to do that in the summer of 2020. That would allow us then, in the summer of 2020, in August 1st of 2020, when hopefully those buildings could be inhabited, we would be able to move all of our students K through 6 into their new homes after the end of next year. So we would have the 3 elementaries open. We would have Lombard at 5-6. The 7th and 8th graders would then go to Churchill for 1 year. So the 7th and 8th graders from Lombard and the 7th and 8th graders from Churchill would be together at Churchill. Mr. Young and Mr. Hawkins have taken a look at that. They can all fit in. Every teacher will have their own classroom. We are able to fit everybody within that footprint. It'll be about 600 kids approximately. Apparently at one time, there were over 900 students in that building, which is hard to fathom, but there were. So they would be in that building for 1 year. And then we would have to utilize Gale during the 2020-2021 school year as kind of an off-site, kind of an annex as we close down sections of GHS. So construction is going to have to go on at GHS while students are in that building, but we'll be able to use Gale as an annex, possibly for our life skills programs, things of where the transitions might be more difficult for our students. There are a lot of things in the phasing to work out, but Russell believes that that is probably the most workable plan, since vacating the building for a year is not an option. We have limitations on the timeline in which we can spend the health, life, safety money that we've bonded. We have to have that money expended within 36 months. We're under timelines for our health, life, safety work. So the work needs to be done in an aggressive manner. And of course, we want to preserve the learning environments to the best of their integrity as possible. It's going to be a crazy year if, the board approves this plan. But we really feel that 1 year of disruption, and thinking and programming a little bit differently than what we're used to will allow us to get everything complete by the summer of 2021. Now, we would need to, in the summer of 2020, renovate the GHS cafeteria, or not cafeteria, excuse me, the GHS kitchen, because we would be needing to make sure that we had food service available regardless if students are ill, if we have them in other auxiliary locations like Wyckoff potentially, but we need to make sure food service is up and running. So that is why that renovation would need to occur. And then the remaining renovations would be during the 2021 school year and then over the summer of 2021, with the high school being able to be inhabited by all of its new students, 7 through 12, in August of 2021. So we realize it's an aggressive timeline. Here kind of outlines when we would be going out for bid process, when site work would be done. The key is that we need to have foundations poured and ready before the snow flies next fall, which, it's hard to imagine because we're still seeing snow fly now. But then we can enclose the outside of the additions, and then work can continue throughout the winter and the spring, regardless if it's rainy or if we have a lot of snow. So the only thing that would not be completed at the end of the 1920 school year would be the classroom renovations and kind of the existing footprint of King. They can't build the addition and get all of that renovation done in the summer of 2020. So the renovation to the existing classrooms and the existing footprint then would happen over the summer of 2021. But the addition would be built so the kids could move in. It's just making the classrooms updated, and more 21st century learning environments would need to wait until the next summer. But everyone would be in their new home, in essence, in August 1st of 2020. So that is our recommendation. It would not be to close Gale for the 1920 school year, but at the end of the 1920 school year, so that we can have that space available as needed for GHS, and then all the students could be in their new homes, K through 6.
And just to make sure that we are clear, this is a very aggressive plan. We're very confident we can get the steel work done. Steel is in building. Right. Well, any.
Just 2, not 3.
No, 3, not 2.
3.
The proper name steel,
okay.
Building. We believe we can get that done next year. That's very achievable. We also believe that it's achievable to be able to get King done, but as you all know, there's lots more to do at King than there is to do at Steel. So, this is the plan right now. We reserve the right to amend that plan if the weather goes crazy, if a lot of stuff happens. So we still believe that closing Gale at the end of next year is reasonable, because we don't see any scenario where a student that currently goes to Gale would go to King. Okay, because you're either going to end up going to Silas Willard or Steel. So we can change that part of the map drawing even if bad things happen and we can't get Nielsen closed. The only problem with that is some of Nielsen's students will almost assuredly end up at Silas Willard, and we can't necessarily amend that part of the map until that part. So ideally, this all gets done so that next year we're here going, yep, here's the new boundaries, we're done. But, we also have to operate within the reality that because of things outside our control, maybe King doesn't get done in time. So we have to kind of still operate on, okay, this would be great, but that might not happen. So we're still going to go forward. The big deal for us is that we need that space at Gale to be able to actively work on the high school, because just having the summer months isn't enough time. And after going through the mall, one, I hope to never go through the mall again. And two, yeah, I believe the number was we had to have 33 bathrooms. Is that right, Jeff? Once we got to the $3 million price tag, that was kind of a deal breaker. We were looking at the mall because it was supposed to save money, and that wasn't going to happen. But we're better for having explored it. We know that that's now off the table. We don't have to wonder, of the available options now after, working with Carl Sandburg folks, and they were super fantastic about trying to accommodate us and find space. There just isn't enough to make it, a huge part of the solution. We feel like this is the most reasonable way to go about trying to renovate that high school building and have enough time to work on, 20, 25, 26 classrooms at a time without interruption, because we can move people around, and, people will just need to be flexible for a year. But there's still a lot of moving parts, and we may come back 5 months from now and go, you know what, we have to change because the circumstances have changed. But we're basing it on what we know at this time.
I for one appreciate your due diligence for looking at all the different options.
Thank you.
And looking at the, having the numbers for the potential closure of Gale and the cost savings. I also would agree that I don't want to move students any more than is absolutely necessary during this construction project. I also very much like seeing this phase 1 construction plan, because this is something very tangible that I think the community can look at and see, and kind of anticipate how this construction is going to impact them personally. Thank you.
I have one question sort of directed toward the Russell people. I look at that summer 2020, are you going to find enough tradespeople to do all those projects?
Yeah, we're going to be drawing possibly from the Quad Cities and Peoria markets, but yeah.
Okay, just it's a lot of pieces at the same time to be worked on. Okay.
We are in the benefit, though, of being in between two major markets where we can draw from both pools of laborers. So, being, the Quad Cities is what, 400,000 people, and the Peoria metro area is, 150, 200,000. So, there's two very large pools from which to pull.
Any other questions? Okay, great. Thank you very, very much for all of that work. And I'm going to start all of my positive thinking now, so that we won't have to contend with weather, because it's just not going to be an issue. We had it all this year.
Got it all out of the way.
Got it all out of the way. Well, we can hope. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 6, approval of our consent agenda. Are there any items that board members need removed?
Can I just note one thing? And I saw in the, whatever thing, I see that our account balance for the health went down $900,000 this past year. Are we projecting that to be going down? And we, in our contract, we held the employees aren't paying anything more. So are we looking for that balance to go down another $900,000 next year?
We just had an insurance committee meeting last week, and so one of the issues that we're watching the trends very closely is because we did not have much historical information from Mutual Medical when we separated from them. We had run-out claims from the 20, I have to think about this, we're in 19? So it would be for the 16, 17.
Yes, it was 16, 17.
16-17 school year, thank you. As well as some unpaid claims that ended up moving into last year. So we really need a full year of trend data, and that's kind of what the committee is looking at right now. But we knew that the fund balance would drop to some degree because we have a better plan. Our employees are utilizing the plan more, which is a good thing. And they have more options than they had before. So, the intent is not for us to make money on that, is to create a solid plan that's financially stable, but that people want to use, and that's what we're seeing. And we had really positive feedback. Mr. Sherpy was at the meeting, and I think people are very happy with the plan and the options that were presented.
Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any other questions? Allison?
Lyon? Sherpy?
Yes.
Statham?
Aye.
Banks?
Aye.
Cervantes?
Aye.
Glasnovich?
Yes.
Our next agenda item, 7, focus area 1, relevant skills that lead to employability. First on that is our administrative report on curriculum. Mrs. Springer?
As you can tell, we've been very busy throughout the district, working on the writing rubrics and the public speaking rubrics. I will be bringing the 7-12 rubrics to you in April. I have meetings with both the 7th and 8th grade teachers and my high school folks this week to work on those finalization of the plans. I sent out an email for the Gifted and Talented Education Committee, working on developing a Galesburg District 205 plan, along with some of the legislation that's been passed that identifies how we identify students, what criteria we use, and what programming we will offer. So that's been sent out. We also have an MTSS, think RTI, the new terminology, multi-tier support system, our system of support. We are working on a few things. I included the agenda that we used in our first meeting here in your notes. We just really want to make some things more efficient, as you saw with the writing rubrics. I want something for teachers to be able to go to and say, this is what you do for Tier 1 interventions for academics, and just compile those resources. In fact, I sent out 2 documents today to all teachers asking what they currently use for Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 for academics and behaviors. The committee meets again Friday. We can review some of those and see if we have some commonalities. Just trying to make a structured process so teachers feel that they know the flow. If I have this concern, this is what I do, and just making it a little easier. District improvement team, we had to cancel our last one, but the upcoming meeting is scheduled for the 16th of April at 6. We have finished our instructional 5-day coaching sessions with the University of Kansas with Jim Knight. As many of you saw, the Knox Early College Partnership, I'm thrilled about this. I've included some of the handouts that students will be receiving and have received from the high school staff. This partnership is exciting to me, and the opportunities for students are kind of limitless to be able to walk away with 10 credits from a liberal arts college out of high school if given the opportunity through the application process. So I know we're working on those pieces. We just finished our 3rd recruiting event. We went to EIU, ISU, NIU, and actually UIUC, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, or Champaign-Urbana, they were at the EIU component. We had 18 interviews that we've set up as a result of that, based on the postings we have for needed educators in the district. So some of those interviews are upcoming, but we really tried to get some people into Galesburg. I'm appreciative to Mr. Tom Knapp, who was able to put some Welcome to Galesburg bags together for some of those people as they come in and visit. History of Galesburg's included in that, rentals, real estate, different activities like the Civic Arts Center, Taste of Galesburg, things like that were all put in a package by Mr. Knapp's office, and I get to give those to the people as they come through the district. So it's a great way to partner with somebody in the community. I just want to mention one thing that you're going to see later on in the meeting, the ESSA work plans. Those are simply the plans written by, it's the Steele School Improvement Plan, and it's the Churchill School Improvement Plan. Steele was early identified as a possibility to be marked as a school in need of improvement, but then their rating was changed. Churchill was identified. Part of the process for the 1003A grant is that I have the board look at those plans, and then I can you know, we have to document that the board has seen those plans. I think that's it. Any questions for me?
Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Next up, we have special education report, Dr. Mashad.
Good evening. My report is in there. Just a few updates to my report. We had a director of special ed, kind of local directors get together. We've been kind of meeting once every 2 or 3 months to discuss some of the hot issues in special ed. So right now, I'm on a committee with them looking at options for school psychologist positions. We have approached the National Association of School Psychs, called NASP, to look at them altering their national requirements, because we're not the only state in this hole. And also we've met with Western Illinois University to look at alternative methods of getting those school psychologists qualified. So instead of them having to quit their jobs for 2 years to become that master's level, is there other ways versus online courses, weekend type classes, things like that, that social work and speech have gone to help meet the needs. So continuing to meet with them in those committees to try to work that. Dr. Calamese from the state board is also a part of that, working with us to help fill the holes. Also, the directors group, we've decided with the severe need in the social emotional area that we're going to start working on a tiered plan of recommendations for schools in behavior, on the behavior side. What does tier 1 supports look like in a school? What is tier 2? What is some things you can do? So it'll kind of help also with our area, and we hope we can kind of come up with, we want to call like a gold plan for schools to use when dealing with behaviors that don't involve suspensions, you know, kicking kids out of school. What can we do to keep kids in the schools, and how can we provide those supports at each of the levels? So it's kind of nice.
Any questions? Okay. Next agenda item are the building reports. Any questions from board members? Okay. Moving on to agenda item 8, focus area number 2, facilities that assist in skill acquisition. First up, our building study committee, Dr. Aspen.
Thank you. I do have something to report. In doing our homework for all of the building replacement, we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. Going through lots and lots and lots of documents and seeing all sorts of things, and a big thank you to Mark Reed for finding this document. But we have another ancillary issue as it pertains to Lombard, in that the gymnasium that sits on the south, right to the south of the building, that was built about 100 years ago. Back in 2000, we found that the district applied for a CDB grant at the time, Capital Development Board grant, and to build that new gym over there, the North Gym, they call it the North Gym. And in order to get the money that the district got in 2000, they had to agree to vacate that old gym, okay? So what does that mean for us? Well, that means that if we decided tomorrow that we felt it was really important to renovate that gym, which we haven't discussed at all, but if we thought that was important, we would owe the state $1 million plus interest since 2000, and I didn't even calculate what that is, because it would be hard to determine. It would depend on the interest rate at the time. But we would owe the state $1 million plus interest just to have the right to fix it up. So, well, basically, back in 2000, the district decided to close that gym, but never got to the step of actually knocking down the gym. So what we are doing right now is working with the Regional Office of Education to get all the necessary paperwork, because as much as we feel terrible about the fact that that gym has a lot of history and there's a lot of people that have really strong feelings about it, we don't feel like $1 million just for the right to even start to fix anything on there. We don't feel like we're in a position to do that. So I wanted to make you all aware that we will be bringing forward paperwork to demolish that building, unless we, I guess, get somebody that wants to give us $1 million plus interest to at least start the process of fixing up, and then it would be, I wouldn't even want to guess how much it would cost to fix that. Jeff, you're sitting there, come on. Come on.
We had actually,
We actually had Phillips and Associates look at that, and they said it would be a minimum of $2 million.
That's just for the bad abatement.
That, well, yes, and that there were serious accessibility issues that that number didn't take into consideration. So
we're talking a minimum $3 million to bring it up to perhaps not even compliance with ADA standards. And we know that this is an issue, but you know, in all transparency, we did just find these documents and think, well, we ought to make sure everybody's aware of them. And with the construction slated to be there this summer, we would also advise that if this is a path we feel like we should stay on, because it looks like this path has been chosen for us largely, you know, there would already be a lot of the equipment there that would do a lot of that work. So this would be the time to at least start investigating that. So I just want to make you aware at the April meeting, we'll be bringing what information we have to be, you know, moving forward on that. Unless you tell us otherwise, I guess, basically at this point. My recommendation is we really do need to move forward, because the path backwards would be very difficult. I mean, really, honestly, I'm not trying to blame anything. This isn't about blaming, but that decision was kind of made in 2000 when they built the new gym.
can I just give an update on where our committees are at for the other building studies? So we met tonight for our third of 4 meetings for the steel facilities plan, and I want to thank Brian Archibald from Leggett Architects, who came to the meeting last week and got lots of really good feedback, and everyone thinking, how in the world is all this going to come together? And he did the same thing that he did with Lombard and came up with an entirely new plan that I think everyone was really enthusiastic and excited about tonight. So we'll get final comments on those revisions next Monday, and then we'll be bringing it to you on April 8th for approval. The King facilities meetings will begin on May 1st, and we will be seeking approval at the June board meeting for the King facilities. And then we are working with Clevenger Food Service Consultants to take a holistic look at the production facilities for our food service and what facility needs we need, and they'll be bringing their recommendations forward with Leggett as we work through that process. So we're continuing a lot of committees and a lot of work with this building renovation project.
Any other points of information?
No, not that I have.
Questions from board members? Okay. Next agenda, consider approval of capital project contract amendments for Lombard Steel, GHS, and King. This is our second reading. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Second.
Mrs. Ham.
I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Aswin because he's been working with the attorneys and.
Right. So this has been slightly amended from last month. All the terms on there are identical, other than the financial terms. There was a reduction of 0.1% on a sliding scale as you go down. So we will see some cost savings as we move through the plan. But yes, Luke and his firm have reviewed these, given the comments to Leggett, and all our concerns have been met through our attorneys. So it is slightly changed from last month, but only those numbers that went down a little bit.
Questions from board members?
No.
Okay. Allison?
Rishi?
Aye.
Statham?
Aye.
Banks?
Aye.
Cervantes?
Aye.
Glasnovich? Aye. Lyon?
Yes.
Next, consider approval of health, life, safety building replacement application for Churchill Junior High School. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Ham.
Okay, in front of you, you will have a document from Russell Construction regarding the building replacement of Churchill Junior High School. So just to review where we're at in the process, when Leggett looked at Churchill Junior High, the amount of health, life, safety work that would need to have been done to Churchill was greater than the amount that it would have cost to replace the building. We do not need to replace the whole building because the board decided to move in the direction of a 712 facility, but we did need to reallocate some of those funds for additions and renovations, potentially at GHS. So the way in which the State Board of Education does that is through a building replacement approval. So tonight, we're asking that the board approve that you move forward the Churchill Junior High School building replacement authorization. This will allow us to take the health, life, safety dollars that we need for renovations at Lombard and also at GHS to follow the students and for us to be able to begin that work in both of those locations. If you look at the very back, and you can look at each of the items, and Jeff can speak to any particulars that you would have, but basically the replacement cost is estimated at the repair cost is estimated at $19.1 million if we were to put in all the health, life, safety work for Churchill, whereas you could build a new facility for 17.4. We're not going to be spending $17.4 million. We'll only be spending a portion of that some will go to GHS and some will go to Lombard, depending on how we divide out the student populations. But there's a difference of 1.6 million. So that's where the state will be moving forward to approve this, stating that it was cheaper for us to make those renovations than it would be to fix Churchill at this point.
Questions?
Is this in fact $8 million more than the last time we saw this?
It's different more because before we were pursuing 3 buildings and the total average amount. But when we, through our working with the state, they're just like, used to focus on this one, you'll get the same amount of money by going through this process. So we only had to approve 1 instead of 3 then.
Any other questions? Allison?
Sherpy?
Aye.
Statham?
Aye.
Banks? Cervantes?
Aye.
Glasnovich?
Aye.
Lyon?
Next, the enrollment report. Are there any questions from board members? Okay.
Thank you. I'm glad we have it, thank you. I didn't like this a lot.
Okay, due to the length of the meeting and the fact that we still have a few areas to get through, I'm calling a 5-minute recess. We have actually been meeting since 5:30 this evening. So if you need to use the restroom, make a phone call, or if you were looking for a polite time to vacate the gallery, this is it. We will adjourn in 5 minutes.
And we'll speak about the architects after the recess, correct?
Yes.
Looks like you're leaving, Jeff.
Yes. Brian is still listening though.
Oh,
We good?
Yes. Awesome. We're good.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Brett.
I know you are.
We talked tomorrow, I assume. Yeah. I told her 7:15, 7:30, that's what Jordan said. It's hot in here. I really, sometimes I'm gonna take this off because I'd like to throw this today. Well, Blake is doing a merit badge for Boy Scouts, and one of the requirements was to attend a school board meeting. I deleted it already. I'll have to find it. So.
first on that item is consider approval of the 2019-2020 calendar. Do I have a motion?
Excuse me, we're back in session now, please.
So moved.
Second.
I think Roz was second.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions or discussion regarding the schedule?
Just so you're all aware, we've made no changes from last month. I did receive a text from I'm sure, Harry Alicia Conway this morning, who heard that we were starting on the 5th of August, and you can see up there that no, the 14th is the Teacher Institute, and the 15th. And Mr. Spring sent me the source of that, so one of our media outlets did us no favors. It wasn't you, Matt. Yeah, it was reported that we were starting the 5th. No, we are not recommending to start the 5th. And then, as I said, this is exactly the same as it was last month. The only thing was that we have 10 emergency days to try to forestall any of the problems we had this year. So if anybody would like to see some of those change. And just to remind everyone, in March, there's a very unique idea, and I gave it last month, and I'll give it again. Lori Ayton was the one that had the idea. She's sitting here, and it was a very good idea, I thought. So I'll give her all credit. It certainly wasn't mine. To put 2 emergency days in there, so if we don't use any emergency days, but then those would be non-attendance days. That would be kind of like a mini break in the middle. And then in April, you see we have a shorter spring break, and we're trying to do this to compress the calendar so that we can get our construction schedule moving along. But also trying to meet 2 masters that if we have another horrendous winter, we can make up those days at the end, because we're basically providing people notice that don't make plans until after the middle of the first week of June. So I really, once again, want to go back to praising the calendar committee. I thought they did a great job of getting feedback from their staff members, getting that this was truly a collaborative effort of us trying to brainstorm and figure out how to come together and make a calendar that will work for everybody. And this was truly a committee, probably 14 of us group effort to try to get this right. So I think this is a good calendar to try to do everything that we're trying to get done next year, but this would be the second reading of it, so if you approve it as you see it, this would be the calendar we would post tomorrow. Although I will tell you, the ISBE has, for whatever reason, not enabled that part on their website to be able to put it in, and when you call down there, as I did, they transfer you 3 times to voicemail.
And Comcast comes out.
Yeah, so I'm not really sure what's going on down there, but you can't actually put the calendar in to get it approved by the state yet, but I think it's important that we try to start posting this for our families. And one last thing, this is all based on the assumption that we have 176 student attendance days, because we've had a new governor, and who knows, maybe that'll change. I mean, we found out about that with 1 day's notice when they changed it last time. So this is based on the assumption that it's 176 days of student attendance, 2 teachers' institutes, not 174 days of student attendance with 4 teachers' institutes. So, okay.
And as we have emergency days, would the March days be the last 2 be used up, or the first ones to be used up?
We did not say one way or the other. We thought we'd kind of play that by ear and see where we were at the time.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Allison?
Statham?
Aye.
Banks?
Aye.
Cervantes?
Aye.
Glastovich? Aye. Lyon?
That's great.
Sharpie?
Aye.
Okay. Next agenda item, discussion regarding the 2019-2020 athletic ticket fees. Mrs. Ham.
I'm actually going to turn this over to Mr. Matthews.
One of the things that I noticed when I took over the job, I was a little shocked at what our ticket prices were. We currently charge $6 and $4 to attend athletic events, and that to me seemed really high. And then at freshman levels, we charge $5. So they go down a little bit, but not much. So I did some research, looking at the Western Big Six and then the Mid-Illini Conference, because that's pretty comparable to where we would fit locally. And I provided that information, hopefully everybody has that in there to kind of see. So I guess if we start with the middle line and they're the same across the board because they actually set their ticket prices per conference. So the whole conference adopts $4 for adults, $2 for students, and they don't charge at all for freshman games. And then their senior citizens just get in free, except for people. So their prices are lower than the Western Big Six. As you can see, the Western Big Six, and I did add Sterling and Geneseo because they will be joining the conference next year. So looking at that, we are at 6. Everybody else is at 5 except for UT. So a $5 ticket price is pretty accurate, in my opinion. And price for students, everybody was in 3 except for us, we're at 4, and then Allman was at 4. For out of district only, they don't charge around. And then everybody except for Moline charges for freshman games, well, Moline and Sterling. I found it interesting from our aspect of being at Galesburg, where I know we have a high poverty rate. And we're a lot of times the entertainment in town. And we're charging parents $6, senior citizens $6. We do not have a senior citizen rate, and we're charging students $4. I knew it was bad when Dunlap came and they were upset on how much we were charging because they would have to be upset. And I know a lot of people there, so I feel comfortable saying that. And I feel bad for our ticket takers because they take the brunt of it. And it's kind of a no-win situation. So after looking at that, both conferences, my recommendation, and you'll see that on the bottom, is I think our adult ticket prices should be $5. I think our student ticket prices should be $3 if they don't already have their sticker. Senior citizens $3, and then a freshman game just flat rate $3. Whether you're adult, whether you're the student, it's just a $3 rate for those freshman games. Any questions?
I asked you earlier, don't all citizens in the district have the ability to get a pass, though?
My understanding is yes. If they come to the central office, Allison, I think, they can get a senior citizen pass.
Yes.
Yes, and we tell them, we encourage them, that if you're a senior citizen in our school district, that if you come to the central office, they will get you a senior citizen pass, and that would be good to get in, yes. Yeah.
I'm not sure if people know that.
Yeah, we try to spread the word as much as we can by word of mouth.
Any other questions?
Would this negatively impact your budget? And how much?
I have no idea because I think the right thing to do is to drop the price.
Well, and there's really, it's difficult to know. We've had these discussions because there's the argument that if you charge less, more people might come. So we really don't know. We thought maybe it'd be worth it to run it for a year and compare.
And I think, the main thing is looking what we charge for ticket price or season passes. I mean, being here now, you're a fool not to buy one. That ticket, if you buy an all sports pass, it gets you into everything for $75. We only played 7 away home basketball games this year. Just that alone, paid for itself. And you're going to have 4 or 5 home football games. At sophomore level, you're going to have 5. At freshman level, you're going to have 4 or 5. And it's just, it's kind of a no-brainer. So, and we have a lot of people that take advantage of it, but that's the way to go, for sure.
Is there a charge for all sports?
Yeah, so $75 will get you an all sports.
For example, if I want to watch a tennis match, it's $5?
No, tennis we don't charge.
Some we don't charge.
Cross country, we don't charge.
Golf.
Yeah, golf.
Scholastic bowl.
Well, that does bring up one of my topics, if I just, we're charging $5 to see a football game, because you're able to do that because we're subsidizing it quite a bit from the district level.
I know what you're gonna say.
And for someone to go see a play at the high school, and if they're, I think it was $10, $10 or $8, I think it should be the same as the football game team, and they always tell me they can't afford to do that because they don't get the support. I think we as a community need to support them so more community members can come. I don't know how many years I've said that. But it's off this, but it's an extracurricular activity those students are participating in. If it takes more money for us to help support, we should find the resources to be able to do that. So more people from the community can afford to go. It's outside the scope of this discussion, it's part of the same discussion.
I don't disagree, but I would also encourage you to make sure that you're checking activity account balances. Member Lyons?
Excuse me.
I said I don't disagree. I think that charges should be on par, but I do encourage you to make, I mean, we have account balances for all of our activity accounts.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so this was just a discussion, so this will be brought back next month for vote. So if you have any questions or any other concerns, please make sure that you get those to
me.
Dr. Essley.
Yeah, and make sure, if you have any specific concerns, make sure you get them to me sooner rather than later, because, based off of what was presented tonight, that, unless we hear something different, those would be our recommendations.
The only thing that I will suggest, and I don't know if it's already done, so forgive me if it's already being done, but if there was a way for us to put together kind of an FAQ, kind of what you were just saying, Mr. Matthews, about, $75 will get you into this, whereas you could, if you're gonna attend, many games, it might be worth it to you to do that, or, if you're a senior. So if we could put together some kind of like flyer or something for people to know, if and when we do change the prices, or even if we don't, because I agree with you, it is so beneficial to have an all sports pass, if you're gonna be attending a lot of games.
Well, if you're a student, if you're going to games, definitely to pay for the activity pass, that's $15 and you're getting into everything, so.
Right.
I think that's a huge savings to them.
Maybe that could be an additional flyer in one of the school registrations.
Yeah, it could be.
Okay. All right, next item, consider approval of board policy 4:100 update. Do I have, oh, whoops, yep, sorry, I had already wrote down the time on trip request, so never mind, we had done that. Okay, consider approval of the trip request. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions about?
Yeah, I believe the date's wrong on the football trip. It has 2018.
Well, I apologize.
I
And
think it's-
just so, there it is, yeah, and then, there was one that in the future, we already have a plan for how to make sure athletics doesn't make a mistake next year, because I'm not gonna say mistake, but there's oversight. So, and I made this call, so the junior high wrestling, which we wanna have the junior high folks come next month to recognize, because we did very well, including a state champion, which is wonderful. They did ask my permission to have an overnight, and I said, yeah, go ahead. I know you're not gonna get it, we're gonna ask for it retroactively, but that, happened kind of quickly. So we do have a plan to make sure that doesn't happen next year, but for now, I did allow them to go outside of that, so you are approving something after it already happened, and that was my call.
Any other questions?
Mr. Matthews wants to make a statement.
Oh, yes.
So, would it be beneficial for me to go ahead and anticipate those overnight athletic events for the remainder of the year?
It would.
Yes, okay, I'll do that.
Any other questions? I think also, I guess a point for me to make as a board member is that it may be, I don't know if we've already done this either, but informed coaches that this might be something that they're asked for summer. I know that word of mouth seems to be getting through, but if we could just make sure that all coaches are aware that this is now something that we're asking for more consistently, so.
I sent out an email the other day to everybody.
Okay, good.
And I've been getting them in and forwarding them to Allison, so we're.
Okay.
And I don't want to throw shade on anybody, that's not my intention here, but I know this has been a press policy since about 2013, so this is only, we're now applying the policy. I mean, so this isn't a change that we just decided to do, we're just enforcing the policy that's been on the books for a while.
Thanks to the review of the policy that we did earlier in this year.
Rain.
Okay. Allison?
Banks.
Aye.
Cervantes.
Aye.
Glasnovich. Aye. Lyon. Yes. Sherby.
Aye.
Statham.
Aye.
Okay, next we have consider approval of board policy 4:100 update. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Esplin?
Thank you. So I'm, Lane, would you like to give any? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on
Yeah,
the
we're on the wrong
on the
one.
insurance man, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is, yeah, I got, see, no, I'm doing it. That's contagious.
You're the clerk.
It's my fault. So this is a change because of, it did not reflect what we're actually doing, so we don't actually offer student insurance anymore. So, and I apologize to the policy committee, we didn't run it through the policy committee, but it was kind of like, we don't do this. So we should really just try to recommend changing it, because we don't want to mislead folks. So that's why we're recommending that we eliminate that part in the policy.
Questions? Allison?
Cervantes.
Aye.
Glasnovich. Aye. Lyon.
Yes.
Sherby.
Aye.
Statham.
Aye.
Banks.
Okay, next, consider approval of the 2019-2020 IHSA membership. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Dr. Esplin?
Thank you. This is a yearly request, of course, and next month, I believe, once we get all the paperwork in, we'll be asking to be members of IESA. That does require fees. The IESA raises money through fees, whereas IHSA is free to be a member, so this does not cost us any money, but it does allow all our sports to and activities to participate in state series.
Any questions? Allison?
Glasnovich. Aye. Lyon.
Yes.
Sherby.
Aye.
Statham.
Aye.
Banks.
Aye.
Cervantes.
Aye. Okay, next, consider approval of the 2019-2020 Code of Conduct. This is a first reading, so if there are changes, we will be able to make them. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Springer?
We have the actual additions and strike-throughs presented to you in a document. If there's something that you'd like me to explain, I would gladly do so. I know Mr. Statham had a concern.
Yeah, I've got a few concerns. I'm scrolling through right now our board policy manual, which, as Maury says, surprised what you can find in there. One of the changes to be brought up tonight is something I had brought up a few months ago. It had been brought up to me on the disparate treatment between how you're treated under the athletic code versus if you're in a different extracurricular activity. And I think we're putting a Band-Aid on that problem tonight to fix it temporarily. One of the things I've been talking about, when we're not up here at the table, is that this code, to me, needs a complete top-to-bottom review and rewrite. And when you read our policy manual, when we make the rules here on our student conduct code, we're to do it specifically with input from a parent-teacher advisory committee, which, since I've been on the board, we have not done. And I think now is the time, and I know we are, with all our project rebuild projects, are ad infinitum committees, but this is something that before I get off, I would absolutely like to see done. And I would like it on next month's agenda to create that committee. I know, talking to Tiffany, that we've got to put some Band-Aids on approaching registration, but we do need to follow our policy manual. And again, since since I've been on here, the little changes we've done are Band-Aids. And when I read through the code of conduct last night, and you compare it to some of our board policies, I'm not going to say there's anything wildly inconsistent, but there are a lot of things our policies talk about are supposed to be in the code that aren't in there. And, you know, Tiffany was talking about how there is a model code out there that we have an update service for. And I think it's time for a committee to sit down and go, you know, let's go through this code top to bottom. I think there's some things in there, as a matter of fact, that could be dramatically shortened by references to our policy, which we update regularly through our legislative service. So I would greatly appreciate we move beyond just the Band-Aids of tonight's proposal.
So you're talking about for next year, or do a Band-Aid this year for looking at something for the following year?
Well, unfortunately, I've been talking to Tiffany. I'm afraid it's going to have to be a Band-Aid for upcoming registration.
Why is it a
Well,
registration
here's
issue?
here's a great thing though, in terms of handbook, because we digitally produce it now. So we can have this handbook out there and we can be revising it, and then we can send it out to everybody and make them aware that there are changes, and it can still be in effect. So, I mean, it's a good idea to have it all ready and gone and started for, you know, April for next year, but we don't have to be tied to that because we can update it and then send out the updates to people.
And I guess at registration, we're going to have to, when they sign off that they've read the code of conduct, there'll have to be a
We'll just have to have a
caveat on there
revision.
that has amended.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I think the model handbook that Wayne was referring to was the Illinois Principals Association has a model student handbook, code of conduct with the policies that press already updates. So we could definitely work in concert with the things that you're adopting on the board and making sure that those align to new code. Are there any questions about some of the ones that were proposed by the committee, however?
No, okay, I have a few comments. I appreciate your remarks, Member Statham. But we do bring the code of conduct forward every year at this time. And there was an extensive rewrite 2 years ago after Senate Bill 100, or was it 3 years? 3 years ago?
3 years ago.
After Senate Bill 100. So I don't disagree that it needs to be in line with our policy and we need to double check that, but it has been an ongoing conversation every year at this table. 2, I would caution us about just using press, because I had concerns with press and issues around inclusivity in the way in which we are indicating in our code, particularly around gendered language and who's required to dress in certain ways as opposed to other individuals. And I'm not gonna say to throw everything out because I'm not a firm believer in throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but I wanna make sure that as we put the parent teacher committee together, that we are mindful that we are held to Senate Bill 100, that dictates to us in some capacity the ways in which we can and cannot discipline. And then moving forward, just making sure that we are taking our board policy into consideration too. So that is the first reading. If there's anything specific that you see that you would like changed, please let Ms. Springer know and we will vote next month. Okay, next we have item G, discussion regarding a memorial plaque for a former board member, Dr. Asplin.
Thank you. As all the members here are aware, because you received an email about this, we received a formal request from a graduate of Galesburg High School to honor her late mother, Joan Milam Kelly, who was the first African-American elected to the District 205 School Board in April of 1969. And so I've been in intermittent contact with Ms. Kelly Alrawula, and we've been trying to go back and forth to see what type of honor she would like. You know, we're trying to figure out what would be best, but we wanted to put it on for discussion here so that people could put their 2 cents in, so we could do whatever we believe is proper and right. So, open to any discussion, questions.
So the 50th anniversary of that will be next month.
That is correct.
So any ideas would need to be shared so that we can do that next month?
Ideally. Which is a short turnaround, because we might, what I was going to suggest, we could save ourselves a little time. And we could do it when we do the special meeting to seat the new board, because that would have been when she would have been seated. And that would be at the end of April, so it would give us more time to get a picture, get a plaque, and, you know, that kind of stuff.
Does anybody disagree with that idea? And we're okay with a plaque? Just with her name and her...
Plaque here in the boardroom, or...
Out on the board wall?
Yeah, we could do it out on the board wall or in here, whichever. I mean, whatever works is fine. All right. Well, we'll keep moving forward.
Great, thank you. And I do realize that my agenda has
We added
an item not on the printed agenda. So now we'll move to consider approval of the ESSA work plans. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
What does ESSA stand for?
Every student succeeds act.
Thank you.
So essentially, this is just a brief synopsis of the building improvement plans for Steele and Churchill Junior High. They ended up having to, they fill out the rubric for the Illinois Quality Framework and identified the standards and their rating, as you can see on the sheets in front of you, or the links provided to you. It also identifies what they're going to do, their expectations for professional development, and the activities that go along with those. Like I said, this is a requirement of the 1003A grant that I put these before you, so that you are aware of what's going on. Do you have any questions for me?
Why is Steele, if its final rating wasn't underperforming?
Because they were given an initial rating, and so once we applied for that, after having the conversation with the state, they allowed us to have monetary funds with that idea in mind, so that we could then support some of those pieces.
It's not tied to the rating, it's tied to the ability to receive funds.
No.
No, and I don't understand.
It was tied to their rating, and since the state gave us the wrong rating in error, and we already made plans to apply for the money, they allowed us to have access to the money.
Right, that's what I was saying, but poorly, I guess.
Any other questions?
Correct. Yeah, you can prove it tonight, so we can apply for the grant.
Okay. And there's no other questions? Allison?
Sharpie?
Aye.
Statham?
Aye.
Banks?
Aye.
Cervantes?
Aye.
Glasovich? Aye. Lyon?
Yes.
Okay, moving to next agenda item 10, personnel. First is consider approval of the job descriptions. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Dr. Esplund.
Thank you. The ones you see in front of you are, one is an existing one, the district evaluation coordinator, and that's just some fine tuning of that job description. The second one, the administrative assistant registrar and Skyward coordinator, that is the result of one of our tech people taking another job, and we're trying to combine some positions to try to save money in the central office. So it's taking some of his job description and moving it to an existing person here. So it's in an effort to be wise with district money as much as possible. And then the other one is a new position, behavior intervention specialist, and that is similar to an instructional coach, and that is working with the special education department to be a bit more proactive with some of our students and our teachers who have students who may be on the trend line to move towards behavior disorders, emotional disorders, and we're trying to be much more proactive in that regard, so that we are hoping to hire 2 people that would be in that category that excel in the knowledge of how to mitigate behavior issues, and they would be working with the staff on that, so that we would ideally then keep students in their least restrictive environment.
How likely would it be to find people to do that?
Well, before we even started, I asked the special ed department to think about some folks internally that they thought would be really good at that, and they were able to do that.
Okay.
We have 4 interested people for the 2 positions. We're just waiting for the approval of the job description so we can do the interviews.
Any other questions
About that one?
about any of them?
Why, you have all the other social workers, psychologists, other changes in there?
No, sir, those are just kind of cleaning them up and putting them on the new format that we're using for the district and putting these in. When I reviewed them and I reviewed the requirements for their education and anything else that might pertain, nothing has changed since the last time we updated them. So basically, we're just kind of putting them on a new format.
It's kind of like a policy review, where this one's just, those are ones that hadn't been reviewed in a while. Yeah,
Right.
Look, they did not look like all the other ones, and so now they do.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Allison?
Sherby?
Aye.
Statham?
Aye.
Banks?
Aye.
Cervantes?
Aye.
Glasnovich? Aye. Lyon?
Yes.
Okay, next we have consider of the personnel report. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Yes.
Any questions about the personnel report? Dr. Esplin?
Well, we had a rather lengthy, I mean, and it's not unusual, March and April, it gets to be lengthy. So we have a lot of different positions on there. We do have one new position that we're recommending that we've been talking about since the beginning of the year, the communications coordinator. We had 37 applicants, and felt we interviewed 4 after we'd gotten it down to 5, 1 pulled out. So we interviewed 4 people and felt very good about the pool, and feel that we got a very good candidate there. And we had also, I'm very happy to report that, is Russ Robb still here? There he is. We were obviously very concerned about losing Dave Erickson, and we were able to find a very, very highly qualified band instructor who will be taking his place next year, and that was excellent work by Russ and Andy Empey and all sorts of other folks that were out trying to heavily recruit and get that. So we were very fortunate to get somebody very seasoned in that area, so we should be able to keep the train running down the track pretty smoothly on that one. So really excited about that.
Questions?
Having heard about how the process went for those positions, I'm very glad that we had lots of candidates and that it was taken seriously and all procedures were followed appropriately.
Any other comments? Allison?
Statham?
Aye.
Banks?
Aye.
Cervantes?
Aye.
Glasnovich? Aye. Lyon?
Yes.
Sherby?
Aye.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Due to the nature of the next item, we do have to, we cannot do a blanket. We have to actually read the resolutions. So the next item is consider approval of resolution regarding the dismissal of Nathan Gayhart, professional educated licensed personnel. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Allison?
Banks? Can't hear you.
The resolution says I'm approving the
Dismissal.
correct?
Correct.
Okay. No.
Cervantes?
Aye.
Glasnovich? Aye. Lyon?
Yes.
Sherpy?
Aye.
Statham?
Aye.
Next, we have consider approval of resolutions regarding the dismissal of Stephanie Campbell, professional educated licensed personnel. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions? Allison?
Cervantes?
No.
Glasnovich?
Yes.
Lyon?
Yes.
Sherpy?
Yes.
Statham?
Aye.
Banks?
Next, we have consider approval of the resolution regarding the dismissal of Melissa Clevenger, professional educated licensed personnel. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions? Allison?
Glasnovich?
Aye.
Lyon?
Yes.
Sherpy?
Yes.
Statham?
No.
Banks?
Yeah.
Cervantes?
Yes. Next, we have a grievance update. Dr. Asplin.
I am happy to report that we have no grievances to update at this time. And I would also like to personally thank Dave. He's been over in my office a lot the last few weeks, and he's been doing a fantastic job. So I really appreciate all the help he's given us with everything. And you know, right now we're grievance-free and seem like we're doing all right. So I really appreciate all of Dave's help.
Next, we have comments by the board. I'll start to my right. Member Glasnovich.
Well, I want to give a shout out to our former board member, Amy Pickrell. We didn't get to give her, she resigned, and we did not give her a proper send-off, so I just want to say we enjoyed very much working with her, and her time was well spent, and she was a valuable member of the team, and the board will miss having her at the table. So, thanks, Amy. She's watching.
Member Sherman.
No comments.
Member Banks.
No comment.
Member Statham.
No comments.
Member Lyon.
I'm sorry. It's still not 10 o'clock. What's the problem? You know? I just want to say, in this building process, I once again thank all the people that have worked so hard on it. We've worked in a close time frame. I appreciate the efforts and ideas that staff have brought to the table, and I think we chose the right firm, the expensive firm that they are, and because they're answering to the needs of our community. I'm very glad. And the last thing, we just passed some resolutions, dismiss some people. It's not an easy process, and I appreciate the thoughts of the students and other people who've shared about those people, and it's not easy. Thank you.
Probably the thing that I hate the most about sitting at this table is having to make decisions and vote on those decisions. But I do want to assure, during public comment, there were some things mentioned about making sure that we are doing our due diligence at this table and that we are taking into consideration a lot of documentation and information. And I want to assure you that we do not, in any way, form, or fashion, take decisions like that lightly. And to think otherwise when we live in the same community and our students are educated by the same individuals, to think that we do, well, it's a struggle. And I have been up here for 4 years, and that decision and that vote never gets any easier. I want to thank everybody for staying. I do want to thank people for sharing their thoughts. I commend people. It's what makes our district good. So thank you. And thank you for sticking around for yet another long meeting. Future agenda items, I've already shared one. I'd like to have visits from all of our sports and like our state qualifiers and things. I mean, we've had a tremendous year in that regard, and I just want to make sure that they're acknowledged. If I'm missing anything, if we've missed any music require finalists or anything, I'd like them here too, so Dr. Aspin can work to make sure. Any other future agenda items? No?
Everyone needs to vote April 2nd.
Future meeting dates and time. Our next regular scheduled meeting will be Monday, April 8th, 7 o'clock in this room. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Allison?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
They can stay.